Today, you'll meet 20 people who are one in a million. Here, we'll see the stories of the bravest individuals you can imagine as they face life with the utmost optimism despite suffering from incurable, debilitating diseases. Let's watch it. It's fascinating. Louise and Valence. The sense of sight is something that most of us take for granted, unless you're these siblings who have faced life since birth without their eyes, seeing only darkness surrounding them on all sides. In Valence's case, the journey has been even more complex, as his blindness is accompanied by deafness and an inability to speak, leaving him completely isolated from what happens around him. Despite being evaluated by numerous doctors, none could determine why they were born without eyes. However, their parents explain that they are much more than a medical mystery. They are, in fact, a heavenly blessing. The reason they say this is that after the devastating loss of 4 children just weeks after birth, they fought tirelessly to fulfill their dream of having a family, and that dream finally came true with Louise's birth. The immense joy of welcoming a baby who survived was so great that the fact she was born without eyes did not stop them from loving her deeply. When Valence arrived 2 years later, with an even more complicated prognosis, their parents received him with the same love, calling both of them true miracles who overcame all adversity. Aline Cerquera Late. Aline lived a completely normal childhood until, at age 3, her life took an unexpected turn. Cataracts appeared in her left eye, revealing a devastating truth. She was beginning to develop plexiform neurofibroma, a condition that causes the abnormal growth of benign tumors. Since then, a series of tumors have invaded much of her face, affecting not only her appearance but all aspects of her daily life. With each new growth, Aline has faced countless surgeries in a constant struggle to control the uncontrollable. However, her greatest fear became a reality when doctors discovered that the tumor had reached her optic nerve. The news was a devastating blow, as surgery was not an option due to the enormous risk of losing her sight, and doctors even admitted that if she encountered any complications during the operation, she could lose her life. Although she still has many challenges ahead, Aline continues to face her reality with admirable bravery. Each day may be an uphill battle, but she refuses to give up and is determined to find beauty amid the adversity imposed by her own condition. Alejandro Ramos. In late 2013, this experienced Peruvian diver was performing his job of searching for mussels over 30 meters deep when the unthinkable happened. In the blink of an eye, a boat got too close to the vessel, providing him with oxygen from the surface, and its propeller cut the hose that supplied him air. Faced with this problem, Alejandro had no choice but to ascend 118 feet in a matter of seconds, and since he couldn't do it slowly to eliminate the nitrogen bubbles in his body, these lodged permanently in his chest and arms. In total, the bubbles violently released from his bloodstream accumulated in his tissues, adding 66 pounds of dead weight. Now that he must live with this condition attached to his body, the diver experiences hypertension and severe joint pain, which can only be briefly alleviated by painkillers. At least he was fortunate to find a treatment, which involves entering a hyperbaric chamber to reduce the size of the nitrogen bubbles. So far, they have decreased by 30%, but he still has a minimum of 100 more sessions inside the chamber, and only then will he be able to undergo surgery to return his body to a relatively similar form to what it was before the accident. Sebastian Quinn. In recent years, this young man has been trapped by a strange and overwhelming disease known as epidermodysplasia verruciformis, also called tree man syndrome. This rare condition causes warts that resemble tree bark to grow on his hands and feet, turning everyday activities into true challenges. In his case, the disease arose from a genetic mutation that weakened his immune system, leaving him defenseless against malformations. Since he was 17, his life changed drastically, as he could no longer work or attend school, and simply wearing normal shoes became impossible. Additionally, the COVID-19 pandemic brought even greater isolation, as his condition made him a high-risk person. During his childhood, when the first malformations began to appear, Sebastian was subjected to cruel comments, such as when he was called a monster by other kids at the pool. The rejection made him withdraw and feel ashamed of his appearance, but over the years, he found the courage to face the world and show what it means to live with this painful and lonely disease. Nick Dismatzek. Nick was diagnosed with type 1 neurofibromatosis at age 7, a genetic disease that filled his face with tumors that never stopped growing and transformed his appearance in ways most people could not imagine. Despite seeing his physical appearance so different from others, he did not allow his condition to define him, so he teamed up with his brother and together they started a fundraising campaign to undergo the most complex of the 3 surgeries he has faced so far. The procedure, aimed at removing excess skin from both sides of his face, brings both hope and anxiety. Nick admits that he may not recognize himself when he looks in the mirror afterward, but he knows that surgery is not just an aesthetic issue, but also a necessity for his health. Despite all the problems, he has never felt ashamed of his appearance and has actually found the strength to move forward in his authenticity. With over 1.5 million followers on TikTok, the young Canadian has become a true social media star, showing his audience that no matter how big the obstacle, there is always a way to move forward and succeed. Ramesh Darji. When Narkumari gave birth to her son, Ramesh, she believed she had brought a perfectly healthy baby into the world. But at just 15 days old, his skin began to peel away, revealing thick scales that slowly buried him in a painful confinement. This is due to his suffering from harlequin ichthyosis, a congenital disorder that causes his skin to grow at an alarming rate, forming hard, cracked layers that prevent him from performing the most basic actions, like walking or speaking normally. The little boy born in Nepal has been rejected by the children in his community, who look at him in fear due to his unusual appearance. Meanwhile, his devastated parents could only watch as their son became a kind of living stone, without resources or means to alleviate his constant pain. When all seemed lost, the family found a ray of hope in the form of the Joss Stone Foundation, a charity created by the famous British singer who offered to fund Ramesh's medical treatment. With the help of a surgeon experienced in these types of cases, part of his dead skin was removed, and for the first time in his life, he received the necessary moisturizing treatment to reduce pain and improve his quality of life. While his fight is just beginning, the surgical intervention has given him the possibility of living with a bit more comfort and hope. Gaurav Garam. He is a Nepalese boy who at first glance seems like any other child until you notice his third arm protruding between his shoulders. The immobile limb is a remnant of his undeveloped twin, which ended up fused to his body at a split in his spine, also known as spina bifida. For many children born with this condition, spina bifida often brings reduced mobility or even an inability to walk. Fortunately, Gaurav has the blessing of not experiencing any loss of mobility. However, the extra arm is starting to interfere with his daily life, limiting his movements and causing discomfort. A local hospital offered to perform surgery to remove it, but the risks are extremely high, and any damage to the delicate nerves in his spine could leave him paralyzed. Additionally, the family faces a deeply spiritual dilemma. The Hindu shamans in their community warned them not to go to doctors, insisting that the arm has a sacred significance. Thus, Gaurav finds himself caught between 2 uncertain paths. One where the arm could continue affecting his daily life, and another where surgery, though necessary, could compromise his mobility forever. Abul Bajandar. This man from Bangladesh lives trapped in his own body due to a rare disease known as epidermodysplasia verruciformis, a hereditary skin disorder that causes eruptions resembling warts. Since then, he has been known as the Tree Man because his hands and feet have an appearance similar to tree bark. In 2016, he began an intense struggle for his health, undergoing 25 surgeries in an attempt to remove over 11 pounds of his malformations. For a brief period, he had hope of leading a normal life, but that illusion faded when the warts returned, growing even faster than before. His condition, estimated to affect only 200 people worldwide, plunged him into deep despair and even led him to believe he was a victim of a curse. To illustrate how difficult it is to live with epidermodysplasia verruciformis, when the pain became unbearable and robbed him of the ability to perform basic tasks, Abul went to the extreme of begging doctors to amputate his hands. However, to this day, the doctors continue to refuse to perform this procedure, leaving him trapped in his daily battle. Roger, two enormous growths hanging from his nose are the reason this Texan's life is a constant struggle. His face, once completely normal, began to change dramatically when a small pimple on his nose transformed into several giant boils. These growths became so large that basic tasks like sleeping, eating, or breathing turned into genuine challenges. For over 40 years, he lived with this condition without a clear diagnosis, until he found a doctor who specialized in such cases and explained that he suffered from rhinophyma, a skin disease that thickens the skin of the nose and dilates the pores. Although it didn't initially pose a threat to his life, the emotional and social impact of such a visible condition can be devastating. For this reason, he faced constant stares and often felt that his life was dominated by the discomfort of his appearance. Over time, his case was classified as critical due to the lack of proper blood supply to the growths. So after several decades of struggle, extensive and complicated surgery removed the tumors to restore some normalcy. Today, Roger continues his life with renewed hope and the mindset that he has overcome both physical barriers and the emotional scars that limited him for so long. Rachel Winnard. Throughout her nearly 40 years of life, she has fought a battle against fibrodysplasia ossificans progressiva, a devastating disease that turns the body's muscles into bone, essentially sculpting a second skeleton. This rare condition, which turns people into prisoners of their own bodies, has robbed Rachel of control over her neck, arms, and hips, leaving her dependent on her husband's constant care 24 hours a day. This woman's journey began when she was just 19 months old, the moment when her back filled with lumps. Believing they were tumors, doctors subjected her to radiation and chemotherapy, unaware they were facing a much crueler disease. It wasn't until she turned 12 that specialists finally arrived at the correct diagnosis. The news was overwhelming, as fibrodysplasia ossificans progressiva is an incurable disease, and over time, she began to lose the mobility that once made her independent. Fortunately, Rachel has the unwavering support of her family, especially her husband, allowing her to lead a relatively normal life. Ultimately, her strength in the face of what could be a paralyzing existence is a testament to the power of the human spirit and unconditional love. Zoe Bosanic. This young girl was born in China 12 years ago with a destiny marked by challenges. A malformation during pregnancy left her without a right arm and only part of her left. However, her story is not one of limitations, but of overcoming obstacles with a new lesson learned every day. Adopted by a couple from Michigan when she was still a baby, Zoe faced a world that seemed not made for her from an early age. Upon arriving at her new home, she constantly stumbled and had poor balance, but her determined parents enrolled her in gymnastics classes to give her every opportunity possible. In no time, she mastered the use of her legs and feet as if they were a natural extension of her will. Since then, no challenge has been too great, as she plays soccer and baseball with astonishing skill while helping her mother at home like any other girl her age. Once you know her story, you realize Zoe is unstoppable, and although she often receives strange looks in public places, her mind is always set on her goals because, for her, there are no barriers. She only focuses on the opportunities she hopes to conquer with her indomitable spirit. Dare Flanagan. The little boy born in Northern Ireland has faced the challenge of living with Apert syndrome since birth, a rare genetic disease that caused the premature fusion of the plates of his skull during gestation. This condition has resulted in multiple complications, including that his skull is too small for his growing brain, his eyes are spaced farther apart than normal, and his facial features are sunken. At just 1 year old, Dare had to undergo critical surgery to relieve the pressure his skull exerted on his brain. If he hadn't been operated on, his brain could have been pushed toward the spinal cord, which would likely have been fatal. But that was just the first of many battles, as he underwent more than 20 surgeries, including a complex operation in which doctors removed his skull, reshaped it, and replaced it to give his brain room to develop. Although he still faces an extensive list of difficulties affecting his life, Dare has shown that he came into the world to triumph, whether by facing and overcoming the most complex surgeries or inspiring others never to lose hope. Megan Hope Byrne. When Janice was ordered an emergency cesarean section 6 weeks early, she knew something was wrong with her pregnancy. When her little Megan was born, the doctor noticed a cleft lip, but the real blow came with the diagnosis of holoprosencephaly, a terrible condition that prevents the brain from dividing into two hemispheres during pregnancy. The doctors were convinced that the little girl would not survive due to the severity of her condition, so they sent her home with her family expecting the worst. But Megan was not willing to give up. Her constant fight and desire to live prompted the doctors to reconsider her situation and perform surgery to insert a shunt into her skull to drain the fluid that was accumulating due to the pressure. In addition to her brain complications, she was born without 2 fingers on her hands and 4 toes on her feet. Thanks to reconstructive surgery, she received a new thumb, cheeks, a nose, and eyelids. At the same time, it is worth noting that her bravery and the unconditional love of her family have been key to conquering unimaginable challenges and transforming her story into one of hope and overcoming adversity. Ashley Kurpiel. She is a 32-year-old woman who has spent her entire life battling fibrodysplasia ossificans progressiva, a rare disease known as Stoneman syndrome. This terrible condition slowly converts her muscles, tendons, and ligaments into bone, leaving her body increasingly rigid like a living statue. In an effort to slow the disease's progression, doctors decided to amputate one of her arms. However, her right leg and other parts of her body continue to lose mobility as the petrification process advances. Ashley does not know how much time she has left before her body becomes completely immobilized, while she continues to fight tirelessly for a cure. Faced with this uncertainty, she has adopted a positive attitude. Instead of giving up, she has decided to make the most of every moment, whether it be traveling the world or completing marathons in a wheelchair. She is determined to live life to the fullest and experience everything she can before the inevitable end that the disease brings. Arun Rajasingh. Arun is a 34-year-old man from Chennai, in southern India, who has spent his entire life suffering from a strange genetic condition that causes his leg to grow to an astonishing weight of 220 pounds. Despite being evaluated by numerous doctors, none have accurately diagnosed his disorder. Unfortunately, his limited financial resources prevent him from traveling abroad, where perhaps they could provide the answers he seeks. The most astonishing thing about his situation is that on the day of his birth, doctors gave his parents a grim prognosis, assuring them he would only live for a few weeks. Both the doctors and his parents were more than surprised to see how Arun defied all expectations and proved he was destined to achieve great things. Although he faces enormous difficulties due to the size of his leg, this brave man not only survived, but thrived in unimaginable ways. First, he obtained his engineering degree and then founded his own software company, which he runs from home to demonstrate that his spirit is stronger than any physical adversity. Rihanna Botha. Rihanna is a 36-year-old South African woman who was born with Sturge-Weber syndrome, a rare disease that affects the development of blood cells and left her with a mark that covers half of her face. This birthmark not only shaped her appearance, but also caused her to suffer from glaucoma in her right eye. Despite living with a condition that brings a long list of complications, she considers herself a completely capable and normal woman, facing her day-to-day life like anyone else her age. From a young age, she stood out for her outgoing personality and confidence. Thanks to her positive attitude, she formed genuine friendships and avoided the cruel taunts that other children might have said. Although she had the support of many, adolescence brought with it a sense of shame about her mark, and for a time, she tried to cover it with makeup. Over the years, Rihanna not only regained her confidence, but also transformed her struggle into a passion. In no time, she gained the expertise to become a professional makeup artist and uses her own experiences to inspire others and help them find beauty within themselves. Lee Baker. Lee was an ordinary man leading a normal life until an unexpected diagnosis changed his reality forever. At 45, he was diagnosed with gastroparesis, a condition that paralyzes the stomach muscles, preventing it from emptying properly. What followed was a devastating transformation, as his weight plummeted from 250 pounds to a shocking 110 pounds in just 6 years. The disease hit him so hard that he felt like his body was self-destructing. Eating became even more complicated. Unable to retain solid food, each bite made him vomit as his stomach rebelled against the nutrients. In this situation, his only sustenance came from 4 daily shakes that barely sustained him, while doctors considered feeding him through a tube. His troubles were far from over, as his skin stretched over weakened bones, and the strong man he once was seemed to be fading away. Just when it appeared that all hope was lost, a ray of hope emerged in the form of a gastric pacemaker that was implanted to help regulate his stomach movements, slowly allowing him to process food again and gain back 22 pounds. Despite this progress, he knows that recovery will be slow, especially since gastroparesis has consumed nearly all of his fat and muscle. Still, Lee does not give up, and as a father of 2, he finds strength in his family, inspiring him to keep fighting for his health one day at a time. Huang Chunchai. When you think of complicated medical conditions, few are as devastating as neurofibromatosis, a genetic disorder that causes tumors to grow on nerves and skin. As if suffering from this disease weren't complicated enough, Huang Chunchai from China was diagnosed with the most severe case of neurofibromatosis ever recorded. For the first 30 years of his life, he had to live with a gigantic facial tumor that weighed 55 pounds. This abnormal growth not only disfigured his face, but extended down to his waist, severely affecting his ability to walk, sleep, and carry out basic activities. Due to his family's precarious economic situation, he was unable to obtain the necessary medical treatment, and his existence was limited by the physical and emotional weight he carried. Fortunately, in 2007, the local government intervened and covered the costs of 4 surgeries that removed 46 pounds of tissue. Thanks to the help he received, Huang experienced for the first time what it felt like to be a normal person, free from the enormous burden he had carried for decades. Chen Tuanzi. She is a girl born in Xiamen, in southeastern China, who spent much of her childhood struggling with genu recurvatum, a condition that caused her knees to bend backward, preventing her from walking normally or even lying on her back. Due to her family's limited resources, they couldn't afford the corrective surgery, which forced her to crawl on the ground using her hands to pull her body along. In her hometown, she soon became known as the Crawling Girl, a nickname that reflected the pain and adversity she faced daily. Everything changed when the media covered her story, reaching the hearts of the local community, which raised the necessary funds for Chen to travel to a specialist in Taiwan. There, she underwent 7 surgeries and 10 months of intensive treatment, until what once seemed impossible became a reality. For the first time in her life, she was able to walk normally. Now she proudly says that she is 12 inches taller and has embraced her life with renewed energy, allowing her to graduate from high school and study social work at university, determined to help others like her overcome their own challenges. Tanya Meisenbach. This girl's life changed dramatically in December 2018 when she was caught in the flames of a bonfire, suffering 4th-degree burns on the upper part of her body. After 2 long months in a coma, she woke up to realize that the fire had marked her in ways she could never have imagined, leaving her with deep scars on her chest and face. At the same time, the young woman from Georgia faced not only physical pain, but also the emotional challenge of accepting her new appearance. The reflection in the mirror showed indelible scars, but Tanya decided that they would not define her life. With renewed determination, she began studying makeup tutorials to show the world that beauty goes far beyond skin deep. Before long, she became a makeup expert who uses her new skills to highlight her beauty and send a powerful message. Being different does not make her any less beautiful, and she encourages others to embrace their own scars, both visible and invisible. Now tell me, which of these stories do you find the most inspiring? Leave your opinion in the comments. Here are 2 options that you'll surely love.